What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. Can you believe just 2 weeks remain? 1.5 weeks remain, basically. It's 1 week, and then like the Monday after is going to be the NACL Finals on April 1st, the promotion tournament, all that. This regular season has come and gone. The spring season is about to end, and that means that the most exciting League of Legends is about to come in both the NACL and the NACL Qualifiers. We got our Qualifiers, semifinals, and finals coming up this week with just one spot left in the promotion tournament on the line. And, of course, we're going to be whittling down our playoffs even further after what was a wild weekend of games, from 6 down to 2 in the next 4 days. We're here to talk all about it, as well as talk about some of the games that happened over this past week. My name is Graves. I'm joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. You know, it's been a content grind today, but as you say, we are yet 2 weeks from the end of the from the entire split, not the regular season. We're 2 weeks away. NACL Finals on April 1st, so that's going to be a week and a half from today or so. And then immediately starting after that is going to be the promotion tournament. So there's a lot of really good League of Legends left to be played, and some of the highest stakes games.
Super excited to get into it. Now remember, we'll still be around after this regular season, the spring split ends, because basically as soon as the NACL split is over, that's when CLOL really starts to heat up. So we'll be around throughout those next couple of weeks to break all of those games down, get into maybe some off-season stuff with the Challengers League, and then we'll see from there. But you'll have a steady stream of Salty Runback episodes coming your way over the next couple of weeks and beyond. And make sure to check out Tier 3 tonight, because that's not going to last as long. We have just 2 episodes left, one more after you are seeing this, as this is coming out on Thursday before the NACL playoff games end up taking place.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of fun stuff there in our last show of spring. That's going to go back to the original time slot at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on Thursday, next Thursday. So make sure you tune in for that.
Yeah, we're going to do a lot of stuff. I honestly think that one has the potential to be the best Tier 3 Tonight episode yet, just because, Grapes, I know we've already got some plans. And if you're a fan of Tier 3 and you're watching this, make sure you tune in this weekend to our Grand Finals broadcast as well, which at the time of this podcast going up will have been announced. Exclusive live coverage on Salty Runback, and this is going to be a high-quality production, y'all. You aren't going to want to miss it. We are pulling out all the stocks.
I don't want to flex before the show starts or anything, but our finals broadcast is going to be really good. We have a lot of really fun things planned, so make sure you tune in to twitch.tv/SaltyRunbackPod at 8 p.m. this Sunday night.
Our mission statement is to make this the most professional Tier 3 broadcast that we've had in years, so we'll see if we can make it happen. We'll see. We'll try.
We'll have our own little flair on it as well. So it's
of course. There will be a Salty Runback flair. Yeah.
You'll have your standard Salty Runback stuff on
most professional
in
terms of how it looks, not in terms of being boring.
Yeah, we'll have our own flair fun in there. It is our channel after all. We get the rights to do whatever we want, I guess. But let's get into our headlines here, Hawk, as we talk about the NACL and the NACL qualifiers, which went pretty crazy. As we said last episode, we were eliminating a ton of different teams. But before we start talking about what happened there, let's discuss a team that was already been eliminated from the NACL, the 10th place team, Mirage Alliance, before we get into the games. Because they made something that you don't see too often at this stage in the season, Hawk. They made a roster change. They've subbed out a couple of their players. They now have Saligo in the mid lane over RJS. They now have Neo in the bottom lane, AD carry position. And then they are moving Dardoch to the jungle, and they are moving Prismal back from bot lane to support. So that's the full litany of changes. In theory, there are 4 new players in different positions from Mirage Alliance, but only 2 new pieces coming in. Just what's your reaction to all this? Because it came out of nowhere.
It's an interesting one, because this did come a little bit out of nowhere, but I had heard that this might be happening ahead of time. And there's 2 sides to this discussion. There's like the what does this actually mean for Mirage Alliance? And then there's like the more like drama side, I guess, which is like why did this happen, right? To touch on the drama side first, because that's what Twitter loves. I actually think this is such a nothing burger, and people want to be mad at Mirage Alliance for like no reason. Guys, Neo was in Vietnam like the entire split, home, and that meant he was not playing in NACL. And that is the reason why he was not playing for Mirage Alliance pretty much the entire time. So he was always on the roster as a sub, and I honestly think anyone could have expected that this would happen. So yeah, I assume it's a similar situation with Saligo. I don't know what Saligo was up to. I don't know why he wasn't playing. I do believe that Saligo was on the roster the entire time, though. So, regardless of your feelings of like Mirage Alliance and what you think should or shouldn't happen with subs, like this is actually a very legal move that I'm kind of like, I don't know. It doesn't rub me the wrong way. I don't know about you, Grapes.
Yeah, so for context, officially Neo was listed as a sub the entire season. As you mentioned, he was in Vietnam, so really wasn't able to play. I'm pretty sure the general sentiment is that if Mirage Alliance could, they would have had Neo as their starting bot laner. However, just due to the circumstances, not the case. And then I don't know when exactly he came back or when he's eligible to play, but you don't want to necessarily make those changes already when you're like halfway through a split, especially when Prismal like wasn't performing super bad on that team. Saligo was also listed as a sub, but not for the whole season. I think they had a situation where they had another sub and then they got comp banned or something. But Saligo was added to the roster, to the I guess sub roster, before like the deadline to change players out was. So even though like we haven't heard about like these being issues one way or the other, this was like the subs coming in and basically, doing everything completely legitimately. Which, to be fair, I think I agree with the decision. Something needed to change. If this Mirage Alliance roster came down into the promotion tournament, regardless of how talented you think the players are, I think that Will is a great player specifically. I think RJS, has had some of his moments high and low. There was clearly something off about this team and how they were performing. And so just making any change whatsoever, even if you could argue, is it an upgrade, is it a side grade? I would say probably a bit of an upgrade. It had to be done. And so I'm glad that they
exactly
did. And it creates a more competitive promotion tournament. And hey, Mirage Alliance has been an organization that has been known to at least spend a little bit in terms of like the pieces that they want, and I think that's good for the ecosystem. And so I'm happy with what went down.
And that kind of gets into part 2 of the conversation. I'm glad we're on the same page. I think there's some people that want to be like, oh, they shouldn't be allowed to do that, whatever. Like, guys, Mirage was within their rights.
They
for
literally
this one.
are.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Like Mirage was within their rights for this one, and I think that's worth clearing up. And that gets into the second part.
Speaking of
what
something
does this
real
mean?
quick, before we go on, speaking of something that like would have been fun that wasn't legal, bring back Thusday, man. Let's run it all back. Let's just like get everybody back in this bit.
Prince of Promotion somehow finds his way back. Yeah, rest in peace, Prince of Promotion.
He always finds a way.
The way.
That would have been illegal. That's not probably that would
have been very illegal. Yeah. But now we can get in the conversation briefly. Like, what does this mean for Mirage? I've seen some people on Twitter, like Sneezes, for example. Shout out Sneezes if you're watching the show. We like Sneezes. Said like, oh, I think this makes Mirage Alliance like an overwhelming favorite to defend their spot now, which I think is such an interesting take. And it seems to be general community sentiment that I've seen has been that this means that Mirage is going to defend their spot. I think this probably makes them a little bit stronger. I am going to actually disagree. I think this team is still so fried. I don't think because when you look at these roster changes, this team was so dysfunctional in the spring split. They need to skill check people by bringing in Saligo and Neo to defend their spot. I think these are definitely upgrades. However, I don't think it's going to be enough to have Mirage Alliance suddenly start skill checking every promotion team that they need to. I think teams like Winthrop and CCG in particular should be able to stand up to Mirage Alliance no matter who is on the roster, because this is essentially going to be like a scrim roster that they're playing against. So I actually think that Mirage Alliance, they get better, they get stronger, but I don't think they're all of a sudden a favorite in the promotion tournament.
We've seen changes to rosters between promotion tournaments happen in both promotion tournaments. One of them last split with Taco having his like some sub issues and they had Spawn playing top lane. That doesn't count. But like we had the Last Dance roster come through with Seals.
That also hardly counts though.
And then we also had AoE subbing Quacker.
That's true.
Over Gomsu. So I'm saying there's multiple examples of these changes happening. You could argue whether or not they were upgrades or not, and it's led to mixed success at the most. So there's no saying that like these roster changes are going to fix anything, but it's also probably not fair to say that because it's such a last minute roster, things are going to go bad. So
I think
that it definitely improves them. I think on paper they are now stronger than Lit. The question is, of course, how can they gel together, especially after all the shit that they went through this spring split.
I think the last thing I'll leave it on, you bring up an interesting point about the other roster changes. This is the only roster change going to the promotion tournament, Grapes, that I think most people would look at and say is an upgrade, right? Like, at the time, I don't think Quacker in for Gompsu was seen as a huge upgrade or even a side grade, right? And the Last Dance changes probably weren't seen as an upgrade either. So these are the only ones that I think can be like definitively said are upgrades. It really just is a question of like, do bringing in these players fix the team? I say no, but we'll see.
You call it an upgrade. You know, they're bringing in the 1-in-4 open qualifier mid laner Saligo, man. Like, is that even enough? This guy sucks.
Yeah, he's washed. Get him out of here. Get him out of here.
Yeah. No, I do think it's an upgrade. I do think that it will help their chances. I will also say CCG also made some upgrades with some NACL level talent in their mid and bottom lane. So that's going to be a fun matchup if we end up getting it. So
yeah,
looking forward to the promotion tournament even more than I was before with these two changes coming in. But let's talk about the actual game talk, because we had a ton, especially in the NACL, where multiple series went the full distance. We had 3 days in a row, I think, where all 2 series went to 3 games. So it was, and then combined with that, the LCS days also went to 5 games, and so we had people commentating. People watching NACL at like 2 in the morning Eastern time, which was a little bit crazy. But there were 2 really big surprises that came out of this. The first of which is that Team Liquid Challengers has risen all the way up to the winners bracket finals against FlyQuest and are now top 3 in the season. The biggest surprise on the other end is Supernova, who was listed as the 3rd seed coming in, beating FlyQuest in their last regular season game, dropping 2 straight best of 3s, losing to Maryville in the lower bracket, and are now out at 7th to 8th place. Which of these are the bigger surprise to you, Hawk?
It's a tough question because I did not expect either of these things, huh?
No.
Which of these is the bigger surprise? I would probably say Supernova dropping out because it felt like we had such a strong top 3. And I think, Grapes, we really expected that slot would be occupied by either Maryville or Supernova, and it's actually occupied by none of them. I mean, one of Maryville and SN would have to be in the lower bracket at this point, right? But we did not expect one of them to lose. And that was a really, really big deal. So I would say that is more unexpected. I honestly think teams like Team Liquid we expected might be able to cause trouble for some of our upper tier teams. But just when I look at the matches, like Team Liquid, okay, big upset win over Supernova. Good for them. Like, that's doable. And then they beat Disguised. I guess from that perspective, like, it was within our logic that maybe they could find themselves in the 3rd spot. But it is so alarming to me that not only did Supernova not get to that spot, but that they actually dropped out in 2 series. And granted, one of them was against Maryville, but still. I also believe they went 0-2 to Maryville as well.
It was, yeah, I think it was 0-2.
It was 0-2. That was on Sunday. So it was one of our only 2-0s. So, yeah.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I think that Supernova being out at 7th to 8th is definitely the most surprising, especially because, as I mentioned at the start of this headline, they just beat FlyQuest, who we all consider to be the best team. It seemed like there was some upward momentum here. I will say, of course, they got a very challenging draw. Playing Maryville in that lower bracket matchup where I don't think anybody expected that to be. Like, that's a really, really difficult situation to be in. Maryville beat them in the regular season. They ended up beating them again. I honestly didn't think Supernova played that bad against Team Liquid. I think that Team Liquid is actually just a very solid team at this point. They've had a lot of upward momentum. They had a lot of upward momentum coming in. They had a really terrible first couple of weeks where they were like down in the dumps. And then they started winning some series in a row. And then, as they came into the playoffs of the 6th seed, I think the biggest conversation was, okay, this Team Liquid team has won a lot of series in a row. However, they were a lot of them were against weaker teams. Their last 2-0 win of the regular season was against Lit, who ended up now being 9th place in the promotion tournament. So they needed to prove themselves against tougher competition. They absolutely did so with that 2-1 win over Supernova. Romer and Keel both showed up tremendously in that series, and Spawn also had a great series against Disguised in the next day of games that happened after that. So people on Team Liquid that we were kind of hoping and expecting to step up really did take that step, specifically that middle of the team, and they earned their spot in the top 3. And
yeah,
I will say, Supernova, it kind of sucks. But I also would not power rank them in that 7th spot right now.
It is tough, and I do think it's more surprising that they dropped out. I will say to like wrap up this point, Team Liquid, man, they've been so high variance. I'm still hesitant to believe in them, but I will say them and AOE are the big winners in terms of perspective heading into this coming week, because I think they were the two teams that looked the best against expectations.
Yep.
And so it's going to be really interesting, which maybe segues us into our third headline here, honestly.
Yeah. The games that are happening today as this episode comes out, the first day of week 2 of the playoffs, are our lower bracket quarterfinals, I guess is what you can call it. The way that it works is the 4 teams that have gotten sent down there play in basically a 4-team situation. AOE plays Disguise, Maryville plays Cincinnati Fear right after that. Then the winners of those series play against each other, with the losers being eliminated. And after that, the winner of that best of 5 is the quote-unquote champion of the losers bracket, makes top 3, and plays against the loser of the upper bracket matchup between Team Liquid Honda and FlyQuest. Out of those 4 teams, Hawk, AOE, DSG, Maryville, and Fear, who has the best chance to make it? It might not be as clear-cut as we once thought.
It might not, because if last week taught us anything, it's that, it's anyone's game at this point. The ball is in everyone's court to make it out. I'm going to say, especially after like a really good bounce back against Supernova, I still think it's Maryville. Maryville played a barn burner against Disguised on the first day of playoffs, or maybe the second day, whatever. In the first round of playoffs, it was like a very tense series that Maryville, I think, would want back and could say they won. That one and the series between AOE and FlyQuest were definitely the 2 closest series in the first round. So, and then they bounced back in 2-0 at Supernova. So I think this team should be able to like pull it together and overcome the rest of the mid-table here and still find themselves in the top 3 where we expected them to go all along. However, it is definitely not as clear-cut. I mean, they might very well have to get revenge against Disguised, or if AOE beats Disguised, this is going to be a red-hot AOE team that they're going to be playing up against. And honestly, don't sleep on Fear either. However, I do expect that Maryville should be able to take care of business against Fear in the same way that they did in week 9.
I'm hoping, in a way, although I love Fear and I love AOE, I'm hoping we get both Maryville and Disguise moving on so we can get that rematch of the first round, because that was a very, very fun series. I would say both sides played pretty sloppy, but they had some
It was a disgusting series, but it was so fun.
Yeah. Disguise actually looked pretty good overall in that one. I think, Young got some comfort champions. I think Tenacity really finally stepped it up and played a very, very solid game.
Tenacity is finally playing like Tenacity, which I think is a huge part of the reason why. Like, it's that, and Disguise has actually like realized how to play League of Legends as a team. Oh my god, the team is actually good when that happens.
And hey, maybe they can ride that momentum. I will say AOE have looked pretty hot. 2-0 win, although it was against Wildcard, who I think maybe we're slumping a little bit towards the end of the year. They had a couple of big wins towards the end, but
I think it's the 2-0 to me that's a statement. AOE won convincingly over Wildcard, which is the bigger story, I think, than the result itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Wixie looked good as we had thought he was going to do. I think Ona had a pretty good series as well, so I want to shout him out as in the mid lane there. All that to say, I think Maryville probably is a team I'm still favoring. Call me crazy or whatever. However, it is much closer than I think we once thought, and even in the sense that, like, Maryville against Fear is suddenly very, very exciting, and that might not have been super exciting a couple of weeks ago, or even coming into this playoffs. So I think any one of these 4 teams really is a solid shot, and I would not sleep on whoever comes out of this, even if it is not Maryville, to make it all the way to the finals, because of how many series you're going to have to win in a row and how much momentum that will build for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they have their work cut out for them, but I do think, and this is their time to prove it, right? Maryville's always wanted to say we can win championships at a tier 2 level, and this is the time that they can say we still can.
Imagine, get to go to Riot Games twice in a row. Get to go for NACL, then for CELO. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
If the collegiate organization.
Hey, Maryville players, come say hi.
Let's move on to our next headline here as we shift from the NACL to the qualifiers. Kind of crazy. We're going to have our finals matchup for the Challengers League just after this weekend of games. But before we do so, let's go over the quals.
During this weekend of games, yeah.
Yeah. go over to the qualifiers right now to talk about the semifinals, which are happening here. We have Ole Miss playing against Blue Water in the semifinals. Ole Miss looked very solid this whole weekend. If we do not get a chance to talk about them throughout the rest of this podcast, I do want to shout them out right here. But the other side of the bracket is crazy. Winthrop winning 2-1 over Taco. CCG winning over Pulstar 2-0. They are now in the semifinal bracket against each other. Now, how this works in terms of promotion is because CCG got knocked out in quarterfinals in the first qualifier, they need to win this series against Winthrop to make the promotion tournament. If not, Lotus, who got knocked out by Ole Miss in the quarterfinals, actually makes it over them. So that would be pretty exciting, pretty high-stakes matchup here. And also, Hawk, maybe two of the better teams. Is this the real finals of the NACL qualifiers?
And this match is a damn big deal. Our Tier 3 tonight match of the week. Some may say that the finals are not being played on Sunday, but instead on Saturday. Because, yeah, Winthrop, CCG, I'm just going to straight up say yes. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to beat around the bush. These are the two best teams in the qualifiers. Winthrop has been weirdly shaky at this tournament, I would say. But I think they're still, like, Blue Otter and Ole Miss have not showed me that they can consistently play at a level that would take advantage of that, though. So I think it's going to be a very good match between CCG and Winthrop. I'm really sad it's only a best of 3. I do want to give a shout out to Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss could really beat Blue Otter this weekend. I think Ole Miss has a decent stylistic matchup into Blue Otter to where they might be able to sneak out a series win. And that's kind of the thing that scares me about Blue Otter, because they like to just basically sit there, hope that nothing goes wrong, and then win the game at 30 minutes. And Ole Miss is not going to let them do that. So, but yeah, I think given all that, I just think Winthrop and CCG are the best teams, and this is going to be a huge match.
Yeah, our finalists from last tournament having some shaky appearances. They've each dropped a couple of games here and there, both in the group stages and the playoffs. And it's hard to see a world where a rematch of those two teams specifically is like the most likely expected matchup, because I think Ole Miss has taken a big step, specifically in their early game. I think CCG is being CCG as per usual, and that's super exciting. So I will say that, yes, this is the real finals between Winthrop and CCG, not just because I think that these are the two strongest teams and whoever wins will be the favorite in the finals, but also the fact that, the points matter.
Yeah,
so
right.
much
This
to
is a
CCG.
huge points game, yeah.
Because by the time that we get to finals, all the teams for promotion will be locked, and the only thing that we're deciding is seeding at that point.
Wait, that's not true. That's not true. CCG has to win the whole thing. Do they not?
No, because they're 5 points behind Lotus right now. So if they win this matchup, they get 20 points. They're now 15 ahead of Lotus, and they're in fourth place.
I thought they had to win the whole thing. Okay,
so
my bad.
Taco had to win the whole thing, and unfortunately for them, that journey ended a little bit short.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, the stakes here are really big. By the time we get to finals, again, points don't matter too much. It's just for seeding, which can kind of lead us into our final headline. But yeah, Hawk, who do you got in this? Who do you got in this series?
Wait, hang on. Are you sure that CCG doesn't need to win the whole tournament? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking on it. They should be 25 points behind Lotus right now because they won one less OQ game.
I think they both got points behind.
They both got, so they've currently won the same number of series. Oh, never mind. You're right. They're 5 points behind. Okay, Hawk figured it out. We got there. We can cut that from the episode. Or not. We can watch my brain struggle. Does promotion seeding matter? No, it does not.
That's our headline.
Promotion seeding does not matter, Grapes. Just win.
Let's break it down a little bit then.
Just win.
Okay, well, if we're going to go that way, then
I mean, okay, we can break it down too, but that's my piece. Yeah.
All that to say, yeah, as we head into here, CCG just needs finals, and so by then, in the finals, promotion, the finals is basically to determine who finishes first in the group, and who finishes first out of that group of 4 teams. That'll be set to the promotion tournament. Now, assuming that the promotion tournament is formatted the same as it was last year, which I'm pretty sure it is, how it works is the first and the 4th seeds play each other out of the qualifier teams, and the 2nd and the 3rd seeds play each other in the first round of this qualifiers. Basically a double elimination 6-team bracket, with the qualifier teams being the 3 through 6 seeds and the NACL teams being the 1 and 2 seeds. So basically the only thing you're determining with the seeding is what qualifier team you're playing against, and potentially, if you like really screw things around, what NACL team you could potentially run into in the first round.
Yeah. I mean, like, it matters. Okay, there is one player that thinks it matters. I just talked to Mobility for our NACL Q&A. This will air in the NACL Q&A, the most recent one, where Mobility did say, I hope we gatekeep CCG this weekend, not only so we can win the tournament, but so then we can play Lotus in the first round, which is a free win. That is paraphrasing what Mobility said, which is really funny. So maybe seeding does matter, Grapes, but no, I mean, it doesn't really. Like, yes, you could get a slightly more favorable matchup, but here's the thing I'm going to say is, like, if you're shitting yourself at playing CCG in the first round as opposed to Blue Otter, like, if you can't beat both of them, you're probably not promoting into the NACL, you know?
Well, yeah, that's I think the interesting discussion as we can wrap up this headline here. The biggest thing, of course, is if there is parity between the 4 qualifier teams, then seeding does not matter. I think if you go back to last split, when Mirage Alliance kind of had a stranglehold over everybody, it probably felt better to be the 2 versus 3 seed, to be Winthrop playing against Team Ambition, instead of having to play against Mirage Alliance, who I think many considered to be the best qualifier team. Now, obviously, it didn't matter because Lit ended up beating
I want
to
point out our last seed in promotion was promoted both times because it was Supernova and then Lit, who I think regardless of what happens in the promotion tournament had much lower expectations than Ole Miss or CCG will.
Exactly. So in this current state of qualifiers, assuming CCG makes it, which of course we can't right now, if it is the 4 semifinalists there, I feel like it is a situation where anybody can beat anybody on the given day. I would say that the Lotus card that you threw out there, the situation where Winthrop beats CCG, then wins finals to play against Lotus, that definitely does mean a little bit more, especially because we just saw how quickly CCG or Lotus was dismantled by Ole Miss, and they were in the Taco group, and I think you can argue that they were probably one of the weaker teams in there. They're a weaker team than the other 4 in this group. So that is, I think, maybe where it matters. I don't think it matters depending on like what NACL team you end up facing, especially with the Mirage Alliance upgrades.
It definitely does not. I mean, you know, again, dodging Lit or Mirage Alliance, like, you got to beat one of them to promote, you know? So you got to do it at some point. Just win. And I mean, seeding matter. It always matters a little bit because what promotion tournament is going to come down to, because I think we're expecting parity between the 6 teams. Like I said, I think Ole Miss, for example, if they're the 4th seed, like, that team could promote, man. And it's going to come down to, like, whoever wakes up on the right side of the bed on the day. And so maybe in that sense, the seeding matters. But I don't think if Ole Miss is playing against Winthrop or Blue Otter or Mirage Alliance or whoever, that it matters enough to say that, like, they're doomed if they don't win this weekend. So, you know, everyone should just be playing to win as much as they can and aim for the best.
Hashtag just win. That's all that matters. A lot of crazy stuff went down in the NACL and the qualifiers, all setting up for this
bonkers weekend. We talked a lot on last episode about eliminating a bunch of teams, Grapes, and
it delivered.
Ooh, it was a barn burner.
Yeah. I mean, the qualifiers kind of did in a way where, like, there were a lot of eliminations, but also they were kind of all the eliminations that we expected in the order that they kind of ended up. I think Winthrop Taco was exciting, especially until, you know, the game 3 where everything kind of fell off the rails a little bit. But
it was our top 4 power ranked teams last week that all won. So
yeah. Well, shout out to them. I'm excited for the semifinals and finals. I think that's going to be exciting, and it gives us potentially a preview for that promotion tournament. But we're going to go back to the NACL here for our part 2, as something we didn't talk about in our headline, award season is upon us. We'll see you there. As we round out the NACL regular season and playoffs, it is time for the awards to come out. I think the MVP will get announced right before that finals broadcast on April 1st, but that doesn't that gives us enough time to talk about some of the other awards that have been announced here for the NACL this split. Some new things that they are going to be doing on the broadcast. We have most improved player. We have rookie of the split. We have our all-pro teams, of course, as well as the most valuable prospect award. But Hawk, we're going to try to predict some of those awards and maybe a little bit more.
Yes, sir, we are. See, the NACL broadcast team is going to release their official NACL awards next week, but Grapes and I have taken the liberty of instead creating the real ones, because everyone knows that we know the most about Tier 2, and nobody ever takes what we say with a grain of salt. Right, Grapes?
Yeah, exactly. Man, our egos are just going crazy right now. We were on one piece of content with the podcast for the broadcast, and now we're just going. We're just stealing the awards.
Gotta lean into it. Gotta lean into it. All right, but yeah, we're gonna basically we have each selected, or not each. We've collectively selected the 3 All-Pro teams, and I think within that, Grapes will also give like a shout out to what we think each of the individual awards would go to. Yeah. And then we've also got some fun, salty Runback awards as well, because we're not only boring, and these are the more important ones. These are the only ones that actually matter. Yeah,
exactly. All right, well, that's a good way to summarize it. Let's start things off with our All-Pro. We got, of course, 3 teams. That's how All-Pro normally works, and we're going to start off with our All-NACL third team. We got Jenkins, Shaden, Romer, Array, and Diamond Hawk. This is actually a pretty difficult third team to come up with for multiple reasons, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, this team is basically Team Liquid Nova, but it's very it's an interesting team, and it was a hard one to come up with, because I think when we talked about our first team, it felt pretty obvious. I mean, we maybe talked over 2 positions, and then the other 3 to us were like, it's that guy, right? And then the second team is kind of like the guys that we didn't put on the first team, plus like the obvious second best, right? And then we got to third team, and we're like, man, there's a lot of guys that we could put here. We settled on Jenkins, Shaden, Romer, Array, Diamond. Like I said, it's just 2 players, the solo lanes from Team Liquid, and then I guess Shaden's in there. So yeah, bottom side of Supernova, Shaden. Yeah, and really, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say. Everyone here had a pretty good split. I think Supernova's bottom lane in particular gets marks for consistency, whereas the rest of the third team, it might actually be a different story, where it felt like they got marks off for inconsistency, but some of their pop-off performances got them onto this list.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid way to put it. I think Array here makes a lot of sense. This guy, very, very solid throughout the entire season. And I mean, what else were we going to expect, right? This guy on Golden Guardians was really good. Here, he's really good. Diamond kind of, I think, gets that boost. Support was a little bit harder to rank just because, it's difficult to figure out where exactly all these people end up going.
It's a lot of intangibles for support
that go in for support. Exactly. There was a lot of really strong junglers, and I think Shaden here at third team might surprise some people. But
yeah,
when we go through some of the other people that we have on our list, we thought that those other 2 players were maybe a little bit more impactful. Romer in the mid lane, I think, is pretty interesting, because this is somebody who had some pretty lower moments, but I think especially now, if you count playoffs, which of course we're not doing, this is a full regular season award, Romer could even go higher than third team.
Yeah, if we were counting playoffs, I mean, Romer had a really good week. Again, like, talk about raising perceptions for Team Liquid. That was a big part of it. And I do think Jenkins, after really struggling early on, did scale into the split pretty well, and I think was a big part of the reason why Team Liquid started winning games, because I think Keel and Romer were always playing good enough to find wins, but the side lanes were not, and then Jenkins sort of woke up, I think, sooner than Spawn and Kim Down might have, which is why he gets the nod. I do want to take a moment to talk about Shaden. I got a DM from Chad after our last episode talking about the top 3 junglers in the league, and Shaden in particular, and some of the thoughts that we had, Grapes. And Chad felt pretty strongly that Shaden actually might have things that our other 2 do not. So I'm wondering.
Oh.
It was actually really interesting. I don't want to like spoil it, but basically he felt that Shaden is the best jungler in the league at just making his lanes look good, because he thinks or knows that he has the best lanes. And so Shaden has been really willing to play a different playstyle this split to facilitate that, which I thought was a really interesting take. Maybe that's the reason why Shaden actually is on the third team instead of second or first, because he didn't have some of the more carry performances. But I thought that was a really interesting take. I want to shout out Chad, friend of the show, as well, for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, think of all of the people that are. Yeah, think of all the champions Shaden was known for before coming up.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he was a carry on EG.
And now he's just like, he played a lot of Sejuani, played a lot of like Wukong, which like is kind of that flex between carry and more tank / dog champion. So he did pretty good, I think, in that role. And I think that is a fair criticism to bring up, that like, yeah, he looks good because he has really good laners. And spoiler alert, some of the laners are going to show up a little bit later on.
They probably will.
Forward. Yeah. All right.
Speaking of,
yeah, let's move on to our
oh, none of them are here. Okay.
I forgot to name it differently. This is our second team here. Faisal, Kenvi, Shochi, Lens, and Zyko. A lot of Supernova representation. All of Supernova was either in the second or third team, which makes it a little bit sad that they got knocked out so early, because this team was very, very talented and just had a couple of unlucky situations, I think, that led to them getting sent out early. But all three of those topside members played really well. Shout out to Lens as well.
Yeah.
Somebody that I think we both were pretty high on coming into this season. And Zyko, who had a very, very big step up from where he was in his first NACL split.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be like straight up. Zyko and Kenvi were both in conversation for first team as well for the splits that they had. So shout out to both those players, as well as Lens. He's going to be the only Cincinnati Fear representation here. And I mean, had a fantastic split. I know coming in, Grapes, you in particular, but both of us a little bit were saying, hey, this could be a split in which Lens, and a lot of people were saying this, that Lens could really prove that he is like the next 80 carry prospect up. And I think he really was able to do that on Cincinnati Fear. I do want to give an honorable mention to the aforementioned Chad Jungle, whose name was tossed around for third team for Jungle. I think if we had an honorable mention squad, Chad would definitely be on it. So that is another Cincinnati Fear player to give a shout out to. But yeah, Lens, I mean, was the standout player on this team, had a really, really, really good split. And that, really speaks volumes that he was able to get in over Array, who, much like the rest of the Supernova topside, had a just very consistent season. Yeah,
really, Lens has been a really great team fighter all the time. I think he has some really nice performances in lane as well, which was fun to look at. People that might have gotten snubbed down in the bot lane, because there were definitely a couple. I think Sajed had a great year. He's definitely in rookie of the split.
He gets a rookie of the split conversation for sure. Yeah.
Speaking of rookie of the split conversation, another player I thought had a pretty solid split, maybe not as good as some of the other players that we have here for the mid lane, was Thusday as well for Fear. If we're talking about other Fear players that we thought played well. Thusday had some very high highs, but maybe a couple too many low lows.
Yeah.
I think Shochi took a very big step in terms of playing with, not as many resources all the time, and actually helping Kenvi really bring back what we remember him for last time he was in Tier 2.
And there was a lot of questions about Shochi and how he would function on this team. Guys, did I not tell you that this guy can play any style? I've been saying this since 2022. It's time to wake the fuck up and believe in this guy, all right? Come on. Good Lord. I mean, yeah, Shochi had a great split. And it's hard to get onto one of the All-Pro teams when we had three obvious top three teams, right, throughout the regular split. So, shout out to Lens and the Team Liquid players for getting into that. I think in regards to Toasty, I would probably have Sajed as my rookie of the split. I do think Toasty played well. I would have him also below Spyrax, who maybe shockingly to some people did not make this All-Pro ballot for us, Grapes.
Good too.
Yeah, so I would probably have him below there, so maybe wouldn't be on the honorable mention team, but definitely Toasty, a player worth shouting out. But yeah, this is our second team, and I think the main takeaway from this is a lot of these players were more in conversation for first team than anything else because of how well they played.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm just thinking about how great of the last couple of weeks Kenvi had as well as we finish up this conversation. He finally was able to play the carries.
But in the back end of the split, he was a monster. Yeah.
Came back out. Yeah. I mean, back half Kenvi super, super strong. And I think he had really good playoff performances too, honestly. He solo carried a couple of those games, even though they ended up losing. I guess the one win that they had against this guys, he was on Kindred, I believe, and just went off. So sad to see Supernova out so early, because this was a team full of really talented players. I hope they all find spots, whether it's together again or with some other organizations for the summer, because I want to see all of them get another shot at this.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. But Grapes, I believe it's time.
Yeah.
Our first team.
First team, all NACL. It is Surdy, UG, Quad, Scary Jerry, and Chime. Not surprised to see a ton of FlyQuest Challengers players. That is 3 of them. I almost counted Yuji because he's in a FlyQuest jersey in this photo. He is definitively not a part of FlyQuest anymore. He's part of Maryville alongside Scary Jerry. So our top two teams all get some representation in our first ballot.
Yep, and I mean UG, Quad, and Scary Jerry were complete shoo-ins for this. I think Graves. I don't think we had much of a conversation at all. Quad in particular was just the best mid laner, not even close. Head and shoulders above the competition. The only conversations we had were in top lane, where it didn't feel like any of our top laners were honestly that impressive this split, I think, against expectations, Grapes, where some of them played to expectation. I think Surdy was still very good, but honestly, we might have expected a little bit more throughout the regular split. And then Chime was phenomenal, and really it was a conversation between him and Zyko, who deserves first team. Just because they both were so amazing, we ended up giving the nod to Chime. But I mean, what a stacked roster. Like this first team, some damn good players. And I know I said like a year ago, hey, I think Scary Jerry's going to play in the LCS one day. I want to talk about the most improved player award a little bit. That's a new thing that the NACL is doing.
Yeah.
And Scary Jerry definitely going to have his name up there, I think, because I said what he could play in the LCS one day like a year ago. He did not look like it last summer, Grapes, but he is looking like it this year.
Yeah, he's Scary Jerry and Zyko. I think we mentioned this on the episode last week, but one of the biggest reasons why Maryville has found so much success and found themselves at the top of the NACL standings. We all knew what UG Spires were going to be. If they came into this lineup, if we power rank them, I think as we said earlier, if we power rank them, in the lineup that they were originally in, it'd probably be somewhere in the middle of the pack. But the reason that they have jumped all the way to the top is because of their bottom lane, and that is why Scary and Jerry and Zyko get so much love. Hey, they were our first all NACL qualifier team back in spring. So Scary Jerry making the big leap up to first team here.
Yeah, I mean, not a doubt about most improved in Grapes. Maybe to have an MVP conversation as well. I mean, It's got to be between that mid jungle, does it not?
Yeah, I think UG, Quad, Scary Jerry all have arguments. You could argue Quad maybe doesn't qualify because he just played in the LCK. I think I'd be inclined to agree with you there.
I think if Mir qualifies, Quad qualifies, but yeah.
Okay, I can see that as well. Most improved. I think it's one of the Maryville bottom laners pretty handily. I'm trying to think of.
It's Scary Jerry. It's definitely Scary Jerry.
Like. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate really quick. See if there's anybody else that maybe could take that mantle.
No.
I guess see Lens maybe, but
no.
I don't
Most improved? He was still good last year.
Right, but
dude, Maryville's bottom lane was griefing and almost sent them to relegation last year, and now they're in conversation for first team All Pro.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I don't think there's any debate.
I don't know if you can call him most improved because he's also technically listed as a rookie. But I think Kisno took some big steps.
Yes.
From where he was in the qualifiers to now. Although I don't know if that counts because he would be a rookie. So
I
the rookie this
I think that's like a worthy shout, maybe not for most improved, but I do think Kisno is a player that I think this guy can play at an NACL level. And I think he just needs the right pieces around him. Because the problem is I think Lit was made up of a lot of those players. I said this on the last podcast episode. Lit was made up of a lot of those players of I think they could play at the NACL level. But unfortunately, when they're all playing together, they're just not all quite there yet, right? So as a collective, they look a lot worse. So that's a good shout. I think Scary Jerry, obvious most improved. To shout out MVP, I mean, I think it's Yuji. Finally, yeah, I think he gets it. Especially if you want to not count Quad, I think it has to be Yuji.
Yeah, we had our discussion about it last week, and I don't think much has changed. I think Yuji is probably one of our biggest choices, unless you want to go I think Sajed is too young, probably. That makes sense, and I think that kind of wraps up our award season talk for the boring, lame
for the bullshit. Who cares about that? Am I right?
It's time to get into the awards that everybody cares about and what actually matter here. The NACL, I guess we're gonna call them paper plate awards.
Paper plate awards, yeah. Salty Runback, NACL Paper Plate Awards. You know,
Yeah.
the superlatives that matter way more than anything else.
I remember summer camp getting some paper plate awards. That was fun.
We did paper
like,
plate awards with the improv comedy club I was in college.
I was called a Croc Boy because I wore Crocs. I got the Croc Guy award.
Ooh.
So actually would fit on the LCS stage, kind of.
I was. Oh wait, what was it? My senior year, I was like the something that had to do with the word compass because I made an analogy during a improv workshop about compasses that everyone thought was funny, and it was like I was like the one that guided them, and it was really sweet. I was like, oh, shit. Now I wish I feel bad for not remembering exactly what it was, but anyway, Grapes, that's neither here nor there. Maybe we get into what these paper plate awards are.
They may or may not be as sweet as that one that you just brought up.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more on the flamey side, but like it's all fun and games, right, guys?
Yeah.
Starting with
our first award, the Chef Award, given to Keel and Diamond for cooking the most in draft. This was the most objective award we could find. These two had the biggest champion pools throughout the regular season, each playing, I believe, 14 uniques throughout 9 series, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is pretty impressive, especially because, especially in Diamond's shoes, I don't think Supernova played as many games as Team Liquid because they won a lot of them. Actually, someone would have to fact check me on that because Team Liquid did have some 3-game series in there. But either way, yeah. I mean, Keel, are we really surprised to see this guy's name on this list? He cooks all the time.
Yeah, he would have added another one with a Nunu that he played in the last game of playoffs as well against this guys. Yeah, I think something interesting about Keel this split is he was able to play a bunch of different styles. Like he kind of
Which I think he always has. I mean, kind of, right?
We always think of him as like the heavy farmer guy, but then you're right. He also has the Nunu, which is something that he's played a lot. That's not a farming champion at all. So
Keel plays all the normal stuff, and then he has a couple of like psycho, unhinged, like drug addict champions that he plays and pulls it. Like Karthus too, I think is. Did he play at the split? He's played it before.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
There might have been like a brand in there. I think definitely like a Belveth was in that champion pool there. So still has that feast or famine pool a little bit there. And 14, especially now that there's Fearless Draft, being the person who has the biggest champion pool actually means a little bit more because it means you're able to play a bunch of different styles.
Everyone's forced to cook a little bit in Fearless, but Keel, Diamond, they cook the most.
All right, let's move on to our next award, which is my personal favorite here, Hawk. We got given to somebody who was actually on our All-Pro ballot, the Huni Award over to Surdy for having some happy games. Man, this guy was so good throughout the entirety of Summer Split. He had some really, really good showings as well, good enough to give us our first team nod. But, man, did he grief a couple of games.
There were some mega stinkers in there, Grapes. I think of the 0-11 Rumble game. There were a couple more as well. There also, I will be honest, were a couple of games in which Surdy, our Huni, was a little invisible as well. Top lane moment, I know. It is so funny how Surdy can be so dominant and have such high expectations around him, considering he was literally supposed to play in the LCS this split, that he can have a couple stinker games like this. And like but we need to remember that this guy is the best. But we have to give him the Huni Award to at least acknowledge it.
Yeah, it's all in good fun. Final scoreline on that, by the way, 2-11-9. So shout out for coming back a little bit. He got a couple of assists.
Yeah, I'm sure one good equalizer got half that KP, but shout out Surdy for that. He was sick. Look, guys, he was sick, okay? He was sick. They did win the game. Yeah. That is such a top lane moment.
Yeah, definition of like a top laner that is very on or off or very that's just kind of how top lane goes. And
it's just top lane.
Huni's one of the greats.
He is.
Sports, so
he has gone to a World Championship Finals, guys. You can't argue with that.
Surdy's been to an NACL Finals, which is basically the same thing.
Dude, Surdy has won more NACL Finals than Huni. Oh wait, no, he hasn't.
I don't know if
he didn't win. Oh my god, I griefed.
He's been to the same amount of finals, I guess.
Yeah. Wow, I really griefed that. Okay.
Man, no,
well, sorry, man.
Analogy.
That was probably more flame than giving him the Huni Award. Was saying that Surdy had won when. Oh, I'm sorry, Surdy. Well.
Yeah.
Well,
unfortunately.
You're looking like you're set up to do it pretty well this split.
Got another chance.
Yeah.
Exactly. Is he the only player who could? Actually, no. Well, there's a lot of players who could go back to back because There's a lot of players who still are in the running, but
back-to-back what?
Make it to back-to-back finals. But I'm thinking like Young. He's in a lower bracket. He could still make it back up there.
Yeah, there's not a ton more.
I think that actually might be
it. It's Surdy and Shaden would be returning, and then
technically Shaden didn't even play. I think it was Armeo that played that series.
You might be right because Shaden was playing in LCS. Yeah, and then Young.
Everyone else is not in the league anymore.
Well, wait. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's
we graduated so much talent.
That's fucking wild. Wait, who the hell? They had like EG had like King and stuff, right?
Yeah, they was
King and
Ryoma,
Smoothie
King and Smoothie.
Yeah, Ryoma.
So,
oh my god.
Damn.
Oh right. Well, yeah, Surdy and Shaden, they might be able to run it back. Just like Surdy ran it down a couple of games. Am I right?
Oh man, shout out.
They could salty run it back.
I think it's mostly for the Rumble game because that's so deep in my memory. It was hilarious.
He was vibing, he was vibing. It's a happy game.
Speaking of that Rumble game, actually, we could go into our next award featuring somebody who was on the other side of that. That's going over to Philip, Mr. Relevant. Do you want to explain why we gave this to him here, Hawk?
Yeah. So Philip had a pretty good split, but Grapes, we did the disservice of. I don't think we ever said this man's name on the Salty Runback podcast once this split. I'm going to be so honest with you. Maybe once or twice. But, Philip, I'm sorry. This is our apology for not really talking about you that much because you played well, And so you're Mr. Relevant. You are relevant in the NACL, and we appreciate you.
It's the Shaq meme, but it's like instead of being unfamiliar with your game, it's like, sorry, we are very familiar with your game. We know that you're putting up some good performances.
Exactly.
But it kind of I don't know. There's other stories to talk about. I feel like Fear kind of is like the Mr. Relevant team where they just kind of were in the middle of the pack the whole time. So, shout out to Philip.
Yeah, and it's tough too because Philip had I think like more interesting players on his team. Talk about like Lens, Toasty, even Chad, right? Philip he had a good split. So shout out Philip and. We apologize for not talking about you more. This is your moment for us to say, we see you.
Good job, Philip. Let's go on to our next award here. This is a funny one. Okay. The Dust Bowl Award going over to Wild Cards Aaron. Now, the explanation here is we were looking around the stat websites, the usual, Leaguepedia, Oracle's League, to find some interesting scenarios here. Aaron had the lowest CS per minute out of any farming champion. That was out of any top laner, mid laner, or AD carry. Junglers and supports didn't count. 7.1 farm. But you wouldn't think that about Aaron because overall, I think we would say, Hawk, he had a pretty good split. And that's because he wasn't farming anything. It was the Dust Bowl. You're not farming shit. You're just killing people.
He's farming champions. Turns out that in the Great Depression, it pays more to be a hitman than it does to farm some crops, Grapes. And those damn minions weren't paying the fucking bills. So, Aaron, farming champions, I mean, it was a bloodbath in the bottom side for Wildcard, basically the entire split. And, look, it made for more entertaining games. So I think more people should follow in Aaron's footsteps, personally.
Yeah. I mean, best laning phase of the entire split was probably that Wildcard versus Lit game.
When Aaron so evil.
On Kalista went up 2 billion CS.
Yeah, Rockboom wasn't farming anything. He was starving to death, bro. He was the hit contract,
Yeah. Exactly, and hey, it actually worked out. Aaron and Doxa were a fun story to follow this split, and even though Wildcard's eliminated right now, I think that was one of the biggest takeaways from this team. Is that this is a bot lane that can compete in the NACL very solidly. I think Aaron had a split that surpassed people's expectations. I don't think anybody had any expectations for Doxa at support, and he also played pretty well.
I got added on Twitter. Well, we collectively got added on Twitter, but I feel like I was more down on them than you. So we got added on Twitter. And Aaron was like, still 10th bot lane, huh? And I'm like, oh, man. They did play a lot better than I thought they would. Wildcard's bot lane ended up being really solid. So shout out Aaron and Doxa. They did do well. Aaron learned to farm some creeps, but good job killing champions. That's my tough love. That's my tough love.
The funny thing is, on Slew, and I think even on Wildcard, like Aaron is still like one of the bigger farming players on the team. Like they give him a decent amount of resources, I feel like, compared to like I guess Darkwings gets some, Quacker gets some a little bit, but the way
they give him a lot of resources.
It's feed Aaron the kills. But I guess he's not turning the kills into farm as much when you just look at the stats. I would never have thought that he was
honestly,
last in farm.
I do think, and this is still the reservation I have about wildcards bot lane, is they have a habit of falling down like 15-20 CS in a completely even lane state, and I'm like, what happened, guys? And then they get fed a bunch of kills, and then they bring it back. So,
I mean,
like
that's pretty much encapsulates the whole award.
That's just wildcard. That's just wildcard. Yeah.
Oh man, these favorite plates are fun. All right, let's go to the last one here. Hawk, do you want to reveal this last one?
All right. Yeah, this last one is the most important one of all. The reason that Riot does not allow FlexQ 4 stacks. Shout out to Quacker for being there for the boys. When Surdy's off going to greener pastures on FlyQuest challengers and the Slew boys get picked up by a wild card and they're like, hey, what happened to our top laner? Who hath stepped up other than the one and only Mr. Quacker? Shout out for hanging in there. Even when Riot does not allow 4-man flex queues.
He was the equivalent of a fifth person in a 4-man flex
He's the poor top laner that like gets flamed by the random team, or not the random, like the 4-stack teammates. He's like, guys, I'm just trying to play some League of Legends.
Yeah. That's really funny. Just like imagining what like the scrim schedule looks like for them, where it's like, sorry, bro, I got slew scrims, like I can't make it today. It's like Quacker just like sitting by himself.
Yeah, he's like, guys, anyone
for FlyQuest or something?
Guys, anyone want to play some like some in-houses tonight? Oh, we're all scrimming. Sorry, Quacker.
Oh man, Quacker, pretty good split. I think he
had a good split. Yeah,
I had from all this, like we named a lot of top laners. Top lane was all just full of like very solid players. I don't think there was like a bad top laner necessarily. Like towards the bottom, you have a Lorm and you have Dragoon. Like they had their moments as well, So like everyone was pretty solid, and it didn't seem like there was too many high highs and too many low lows in that position.
Grapes, you're so nice. No, I mean I understand your sentiment. I think there was a lot of parity in top lane this split for the most part. I would maybe argue that a couple of top laners did not perform to the level that I hoped. However, I think Quacker
but it all
was
evens,
not
it
one
all
of
evens
those.
out,
And it all evens out if they can defend their promotion spots. But yeah, I think Quacker he had a good split. It was not, I think, as electrifying as his Supernova split last year. However, it was still very good.
Yeah. I just thought of another analogy. It's like when you're in a Discord with like some of your friends, and like you got a group of friends that, like all plays League together. But then like when one of the boys isn't able to come, you ping the other guy. It's like, hey man, our friend's not able to. Or like this guy's not able to make it. You want to hop in? that's
and they start making inside jokes, and like that one guy doesn't really get it. They'll be like, dude, remember the time when like you did like we did the banana slamma, and they're like, yeah, I remember that. Ha 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 ha. Totally, I was there.
Oh man!
Like and you realize
feel bad for Quacker.
We definitely shouldn't feel it. It's just funny. I don't know. Shout out Quacker.
He
was
funny.
there for the boys, man.
Yeah, guest friend of the show too, was on the podcast.
True.
He talked about how he didn't feel too left out. So that's why we can make fun.
It's
of
probably
him
because
here,
it's probably because Slew doesn't scrim together. If I had to guess, Grapes, they probably scrim with Quacker more. Honestly, Surdy is probably the like left out friend in this situation when we're talking scrims and stuff.
He's like the anime character that like goes off to do his own arc for like a little
right, okay, yeah. It's like the you versus the guy she tells you not to worry about. That's maybe how Quacker is feeling about Surdy a little bit.
Like, yeah, it's like, well, in Haikyuu, which is like one of the few anime that I watch. Like there's a whole arc where like two of the better players go to like the all-star team or something, and they come back.
Yeah,
that maybe is what Surdy's doing.
Yeah. I'm with you. That's good. That's Surdy.
All right. Well, that's the last of our paper plate awards.
That's
it.
A
fun segment. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like we could do that every split.
We could do more of these for sure. We could do more.
I could just do it we could do it every week. Just like give out some awards or something.
Next time we do this, we should give out one to each team, or like one to each, like a player on each team. That's a good idea. Someone write that down.
Yeah. I got it. We got it in the back of our memory. Next split. Well, that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
But,
next split.
Another successful episode. We got episode 45 coming over, which will be our preview of the finals. There's going to be 2 teams left in the competitive spring split here, Hawk, just in a couple of days. That's kind of crazy.
That is absolutely wild. We got another good weekend up ahead of us. Remember that the games I think are only on Thursday. So they're on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and not Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. However,
I think it's all 4 days.
Okay, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, make sure you watch NACL.
Thursday is the best of 3s, which is today, as the episode comes out. Friday and Saturday and Sunday are each best of 5s. But Friday and Saturday are after LCS, and Sunday is actually at the original 4 p.m. Eastern time slot, which actually, in fact, leads directly in to the NACL Qualifier Finals, which you can be able to watch on twitch.tv/saltyrunback at 8 p.m. Eastern. So depending on how long that series ends up going, you could go right over to the qualifiers afterwards.
Yeah, and just check LOL Esports to get all the schedules. But this one won't be on LOL Esports. Make sure you watch the Salty Runback Finals. We're going all out. Grapes and I are going to be on the call alongside Camcom in the Tier 3 tonight. Epic TriCast that has always been meant to be. And we've got a lot of production behind us, some player guests as well. And it's going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Salty Runback is the only place that you can watch the best of 5 grand finals. Make sure you also check out our final episode of Tier 3 tonight. That will be airing a week from today at the time of release, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Back at the standard time slot, we'll be doing what we did right now, but maybe more seriously, and for the qualifier teams. Who knows? And I think that's basically all we have going on. Playoffs have started in CLOL. No games this weekend. However, we'll be into, I want to say, quarterfinals for all the regional leagues. So we're going to be picking up some of those big CLOL matches. And the CLOL Championship, I believe, is in like late April. So we're coming up on it, Grapes. I don't know if you've submitted your selection committee ballot. I submitted mine. Hopefully we're on that.
We're going to be selecting, hopefully.
Hopefully we're selecting some CLOL teams. And if you think that Surdy is not like Hooney, you can take everything we said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Make sure you check out all of our social media. Have a great night.